Women and capitalism. Of course, capitalism has existed for, as I say, 200, 250 years in its kind of mature form. And women's position inside society has changed very, very much in that time. Again, I want to talk very much about what's happening today, but I want to refer back to what has happened in earlier parts of capitalism as well. If you look at women in capitalism today, there's 3 points I want to make about the position of women inside capitalist society. The first is that women do much of the work inside capitalist society. This might seem obvious to all of us. It might seem obvious to most women in the world, who are supposed to be less strong and therefore less well paid than men. But actually, if you see women carrying children or shopping or anything else, you know that actually there's a lot of physical labour that goes into the most basic work that women do. And actually, you don't have to take my word for this, but The Economist magazine, which studies how people work and who does the work, made the point back in 2007. They said that the increase in female employment in the rich world, in the richest capitalist countries, has been the main driving force of growth over the last 20 years. And they say that actually women's contribution to the gross domestic product of these various rich countries is bigger, has had a bigger impact on the world economy than the rise of China, has had a bigger impact on the world economy than the rise of India, and those are the 2 biggest developing powers in the 21st century, and it's had a bigger impact than the rise of computer technology as well. So in other words, a lot of the wealth that's been created over the last 20 or 30 years has come directly from women's employment. You don't hear very much about the women's economic miracle. You know, you hear about the great advances in China and India and all the great changes that have taken place. But of course, women's labour, while it may be recognised now that women work outside the home, it is not recognised as something which is a great wealth creator. And certainly women don't get the wages or the conditions that you might expect from people who are being the great wealth creators. The Economist actually thinks if you take into account women's paid work and women's unpaid work, and of course millions of women, both in countries like Britain and in countries around the world, do childcare, care for old people, do agricultural work, do all sorts of work for no money at all, unpaid labour. They reckon that if you add the paid and unpaid labour in the world, then women do the majority of the work. Now, that is the first point that I want to make in terms of, that is a huge change in terms of women's position in society. The second thing that isn't a change but still remains a fact is that women are mainly responsible for the family in our society. Now again, I don't think I need to spell this out too much to people in this room, or indeed millions of other people in this country. You only have to look at who does the bulk of the childcare, of the caring for the sick, of the housework, and you find that it's women. This is true. It's changed a lot. I mean, when I was born, my mother said my father wouldn't even push the pram because he regarded it as a kind of unmanly thing to do, and things have changed very, very much since then. But if you still look at it, you find that women still do the bulk of the housework. So in the 1990s, there was a survey which showed that women, mothers in particular, spent much more time doing housework and cooking than men. They did 2.59 hours a day as opposed to 0.41 hours a day. So that's more than 2 hours a day extra, which women are carrying out. They spent more time caring for children, 1.56 hours a day, as opposed to 0.54 hours a day. Men did more paid work. Well, you know, they did 5.31 hours a day compared with 2 hours a day for women. Women, however, spent more time than men sleeping and socialising. Now that was in the mid-90s. I don't know what conclusion you might draw today. Women certainly work longer hours than that. They work, far more of them work full-time than they did even in the 1990s, and in particular far more mothers of children, even of very, very young children, will go out to work. But it is still the case that the majority of housework and childcare is still carried out by women, unpaid in the home. And of course, if you look at the people who are paid to do jobs like housework and childcare, they're also women. So either way, you find this is an area where women are expected to be the, quotes, caring individuals, and too bad for you if you're a woman and you don't fit into that category, or indeed if you're a man and you want to fit into that category, because that neither of those conform to the kind of sexual stereotypes which are so common in our society. So that's the second area of women's lives which is important for us. The third area, which I just want to touch on because I think